Okay, now we're going to do a demonstration of divination. We're going to be working with a tarot deck, and I'm going to be demonstrating a divination process that I call the intuitive heart divination process, or the intuitive heart discovery method, because it helps you discover your own intuitive wisdom about something that you're trying to understand. Now you'll be involved in learning how to work with the tarot deck, and I have here the Aquarian Tarot because it's one that I've used the most often, although I have many different tarot decks because I really do like the pictures. But I'm going to show you a way for you to get acquainted with the tarot in an intuitive manner. Because when you get a tarot deck, you'll usually get a book that goes along with it that explains the meaning of each of the cards and how to do a tarot reading, how to lay out the cards and interpret the different ones. And so as you start to do readings, you'll be referring to your book a lot in order to understand the symbolism. So then there's a lot of, you might say, book learning involved. And that's all well and good in terms of building up your background in symbology and mythology and understanding the archetypal cycles of development, death, and rebirth, and so on. It tends to divert your attention from the intuitive aspect that you bring to a reading. So I want to show you the way that I have my students make an intuitive connection with the cards in a tarot deck. What I've done is I've pulled out the 22 cards from the tarot deck of the major arcana. These are the heavy archetypal cards that are often in a deck numbered by Roman numerals. And what I suggest that you do, as I suggest to all my students, is that you make one card be the card for the day. Now, you don't have to do this every day, but only do one card on a given day. And you form a relationship with that card, an intuitive relationship, and also watch the synchronicities. Now, I'm going to explain this again. We'll go over it. But right now, I'm going to describe the divination process that I'm about to do. First of all, the first step is that I will draw a card from this pile here. And then I'm going to do a divination on this card, not using any tools other than my own self. And what I'm going to do is ask that a memory come forth from my mind, and that this memory will teach me something about how I can relate to this particular card that I've chosen. We'll start out with a preparation, a meditative preparation, getting into the headspace of divine order, like using the breath and the heart that we've already practiced. And then I'll be using a memory divination, in that I have millions and millions of memories, many of them insignificant, most of them in fact. And I'm going to allow a memory to spontaneously come forth into my mind. This would be very much like drawing out a tarot card, or throwing some dice, or other kind of random event, except in this case a random event is going to be the memory that pops into my mind. And then, as we've already discussed in terms of metaphors, and that is in terms of understanding something unknown in terms of something known, which is what divination does and which intuition does, I'll be using something familiar, my memory, to understand something unfamiliar to me, and that is this tarot deck card that I've chosen. So then I will make a lesson from my memory and see what it has to teach me, and then I'll look at the card and I'll say, what is my lesson that I got from my memory? help me see and understand this card in some very personal kind of way. That will make my personal connection with it. That will give me something that I can draw upon later, as we'll look in the book and see what the book says about the card. I also have here, in addition to the small booklet that came with the tarot deck, I have one of the many reference books on tarot right here. This one happens to be Jung and Tarot by Sally Nichols, and we'll be able to read a little bit more about that particular card. Okay, now, so that's basically the idea, and this is what I would suggest that you do. But I'll go through it, and then we'll review what I did and talk about how you can do something like this yourself as a way of getting acquainted with the major cards in the deck. You could do it with all of the deck, of course, but most significantly the 22 major cards, the real powerful archetypal cards. It'd be very good to do that. Then you'll have a foundation for drawing on your own intuition. I'm going to do an additional thing as well, something that I think is important as part of the practice, and that is when I actually see the card, and before I read about its meaning, of course I'll have my own memory divination to guide me to some extent, but I'm going to study the card for a moment and close my eyes and allow the images that remain in my mind from the card to move and animate and make a little movie, which I'll describe for you. And I'll use that movie as a way of reflecting my understanding of what I see going on in the card. This is be an exercise that helps me digest the information in the card and also prepare me in some way for understanding perhaps the dynamics in the imagery. Okay, so we're going to go first, and I'm going to shuffle these cards, and each day, or however often you want to do it, I'd suggest while you're studying the tarot, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, you pick a card for that day or for that 24-hour period or whatever. So I'm going to pick a card. I'm not going to look at it. And now I'm going to very quickly make this attunement that you've already practiced. And it's hard for me to talk while I'm tuning into my breath, but I'm going to let the breath go out and then come in of its own while I enter into the flow state. The flow state helps me not only get into the flow of the universe, part of the natural harmony, but it'll also allow my memories to flow easily without me making any effort. And then I can feel the wonderful relaxation and sense of confidence that brings. Allow myself to feel gratitude for my breath, coming from a place of abundance now. It's very consistent with the belief, the worldview, that everything I need I have within me, coming to me now. That my heart begins to open up in gratitude. And just reach out with my heart, as it were, and make a connection with that card. I don't know what the card is, but I just take it into my heart and love it. This is making a connection with it. So what is outside and inside become as one. And then I just ask, in the intuitive heart discovery method, as a memory divination, that a memory will pop out into my mind that will provide me with a lesson that will be useful in understanding this card that I've selected. So I see, remembering a time now I'm out on the field in junior high, and there was a girl who was elected to be the Valentine's Queen. This was in 8th grade, and she had many suitors, many boys chasing after her. Obviously, she was very popular, and that's why she was nominated Valentine's Queen. But she didn't want to reveal her hand too much and pick one of the guys to be her king, so she left it open to a lottery. And as a lark, I put my name into the hat. I mean, I kind of knew her, but we weren't close or anything. I certainly wasn't one of her suitors. But I put my name into the hat. And the time of the drawing, I was out playing marbles in the field with the other kids. And I can remember we're there playing, and I see this girl walking toward us. Not the girl who was the Valentine Queen, but this other girl. And I knew somehow that my name had been picked. And sure enough, she came over, and I was being summoned because the Valentine Queen had picked my name, and she wanted to speak with me. As it turned out, she wanted to talk about me getting in touch with her mom and so on, about what she was going to wear and so on, so that we would coordinate and make sure I was the right color. Anyway, that's the memory. I don't know why that came to mind, but let's examine it for a moment. You know, that's the picture. It's like my own personal tarot card. What's the lesson here? What do I see? Well, I see in that there's an event. Something happens. There's a surprise, and it's announced that I'm the winner. Also, this is a time when I think one of the first times that I can remember when I got kind of a glimpse into another dimension, because somehow I knew I was going to win. It didn't make sense. But when that girl walked up, I just knew, yep, I have won. I have been selected. And then she announces, you know, you've been called. You're the one. And it was like something clicked inside, and it was like a sense of recognition, of being told that you know, that your intuition is right. I don't even know if I knew that word, intuition, but somehow something inside was like, yeah, kind of a thing. And that was really special. The dance itself turned out to be a lark once we did our opening dance and everything. Our mom had made sure I was dressed appropriately and so on. We did the opening dance, and there wasn't. I never danced with her again the whole night. She had all her boyfriends. But the part that I remembered and what was in my image was the being called and being announced. You know, your name has been selected, and how that connected somehow with like a bells ringing or something that. You're right. Some inner thing has been validated in some way. So that was a major kind of experience. Okay, so let's turn over the card, and it is Judgment. Here, I'll let you take a look at it. Judgment. It's card 20, Roman numeral XX20. And what it has on the card is a horn. Someone's playing a horn. I see that. And the sun shining behind a cloud. And that's very much like that feeling, you know. Da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Someone is announcing, proclaiming, the sense of dawning awareness coming out from behind the clouds. There's flowers blooming. Something has been declared somehow. I've been declared as the king. I've been declared the winner. The inner feeling has been made correct. Now I'm going to look at the card. I'll say what I'm seeing here, what I'm committing it to memory. Here I see a person with long hair and a robe. It looks like a feathered robe of some sort, and they have a long trumpet with a flag and a cross on it. In the background is a cloud with the sun rays coming above it like it's a sunrise. There's some yellow leaves, out of which some purple flowers are blossoming. And there's a mountain in the background. Looks like it's a black mountain with a side area of a lighter color. So I've tried to commit that to memory, and I'm going to close my eyes for a moment and picture it, try to see it in my mind. I see it in my mind. I see that flag with the cross. It's blowing in the wind. The wind's blowing as the guy plays the trumpet. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do. And the sun's opening out and shining. It's getting lighter. It's getting warmer. There's a really good feeling in the air. The flowers opening up, blossoming. I feel like something on the mountain is like it's melting. And it's like springtime. It's a new beginning somehow. Out with the old and in with the new. It'd be kind of like whatever darkness or doubts or what have you had been before. Now it's a new time, and I see the person playing the horn and now is making a proclamation, and he's saying, from this day forward we do declare that there are new rules apply. And the flowers open up, and they're singing. I see them singing a little song about they're really happy to be out, and it's a whole new world that they're in. And they're tired of being in the seeds, and now they're out into the light, and they're really happy about that. And the sun's saying it's glad to not be on the other side of the planet, and glad that it's being able to participate in the morning. And the clouds are becoming transparent and allowing the sunshine to flow in. I hear church bells ringing, and people are coming out of their houses and dancing, and there's a great celebration. And it's almost kind of like the millennium or something like that, where it's just totally a new day. Okay, so that was a little fantasy that I had about what was going on in the card, in terms of a little cartoon or something. And that is just to give me more personal relationship with the card. Now, I will read about it. Let's see here. Where is it? Number 20, Judgment. A herald sounds a trumpet to the breaking day. A cross which seems to grow out of the darkness on a distant mountain is displayed from the banner which hangs from his trumpet. At his feet flowers grow. In the distance the sun rises above white clouds. So they're mentioning pretty much the details that I saw. The meaning, judgment. Judgment is the final personal experience and the beginning of the non-personal experience that follows the inevitable obliteration of the self. So some kind of a change in one's self-concept or something. In a limited sense, the movement of judgment is the same as the moment of awareness, shown in the card number 17, the star. How judgment has the added interpretation of being an unavoidable certainty which must come to all men sooner or later. The tarot, by its structured symbolism, gives the seeker a preview of this inevitability, and by reminding him of the impending doom of his personal self, encourages him to seek understanding of the cosmic self, the infinite nature of all things. And it is something like you could call it the cosmic self, that I wouldn't have used those terms when I was a kid, but something about awareness of a cosmic self that was touched as that girl comes forward and announces, that I was the one that was chosen. Through an understanding of the symbolism of this card, the seeker can begin to be aware of the dawning of a new day, which comes to him who casts off the burden of ego and moves closer to the comprehension of his infinite nature. And that's certainly what I was doing at that particular moment. So you can see how the memory touches in to the card. I made this connection, and I did this memory divination through the intuitive heart discovery process. and made the connection with the card that personalizes it for me. It's a touchstone. I can remember what that felt like, and somehow that feeling, I accept that the synchronicity is meaningful, that the feeling that I had back then relates to the feeling being described or pointing to in the card Judgment, especially the theme about a new day, put away the old self, come on with the new self, and somehow for me saying, hey, you know, this little person who's maybe doubtful or whatever needs to go away because, look, you were tuned in, you could make this kind of a connection. Now, if you want and you have a reference book, you can look up even more information about it. And I will look up in this book, there's, 10 or 15, 20 pages about each of the major cards. It's much more in-depth than the books that usually accompany the deck of cards that you buy. And let's see here. Where is it? Judgment. I can't read it all because it's way too long. Judgment of Vocation. Here's a quote. Lo, I will tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. For this perishable nature must put on the imperishable, and this mortal nature must put on immortality. So she's using a different deck, the Marseille deck, and you can see that there, the card. It's different. It's like an angel coming down out of the sky that's playing the trumpet, and the three people down there on the in the bathtub or something are receiving this trumpet call. And it shows that the card decks can vary in the detail, but the general interpretation was very similar. Spiritual resurrection is a term that she uses, and sound as remember I was talking about hearing the bells ringing and so on. It's some kind of an announcement. Vitality, a new vitality comes in. And we could go on reading about it, and as I'm reading the material, I can be thinking about the memory divination that they did, and also the little cartoon that came to my mind, the celebration, the new day, and so on. And I have this personal background to guide me as I study the reference material. And whenever the Judgment card comes up in a reading, as I get into doing layouts and doing readings, I'll remember, of course, about this little experience that I have, and it gives me a basis for interpreting the tarot cards without having to look into the reference books and read it. So it gives me a leg up, and it also starts showing, you see, the role of intuition, because I was being very intuitive there in my connecting with that Judgment card. Intuition is something where we feel around the corner, feel into the dark, and we somehow try to then understand what's around the corner, and it's reminding us of something. It brings up some understanding, it brings up some awareness, and we are intuitive about it. And so calling upon a memory just makes that very explicit. And what we do in a divination is we're trying to understand the nature of things. We can't see them, so we pull out something that we can see, like a card, and we interpret the card to understand that hidden thing. So it's very similar, you see. I'm being intuitive, I'm doing a divination. The intuitive heart discovery method, you can look at it as an act of intuition, or you can look at it as an act of divination. And I think it's important that you see that kind of a connection, because it starts opening your mind to how all these things tie in and relate. So what I'd suggest that you do then, you see, is you get out at least the the major cards, the 22 cards. You might want to do it with all of them, but a few times a week, but not more than once a day. Draw a card out. Don't look at it. Just lay it there. Make the intuitive heart connection with it. That is, go into the state of mind of the divine mind, divine harmony that you get from your breath and the gratitude, opening your heart. Make that heart connection with the card. Then do a memory divination and let a memory come out. And you notice what I did with the memory. I asked, what does it have to teach me? What can I learn from it? And you know, the lesson being that that sometimes, you know, you are unexpectedly called. Your name comes up, as it were, something where you have an inner inkling, and then it manifests on the outside, and the inside and the outside becomes one, and there is this awakening. That was kind of like the lesson that I took from it, to let go of doubts and trust in intuition, and thus in the expanded self. And this is my own personal touchstone then to that card, the judgment card. I also did a little movie, let a cartoon develop. Now what I would do is I would give myself about 24 hours, maybe a little bit longer, and be on the lookout for synchronicities. I mean, wouldn't it be funny if I ran across a horn, or someone calls my name, a long-lost friend, and they holler, and I turn around, you know, who's that? And it's some long-lost friend, or who knows, the kinds of synchronicities that I'll be aware of in the next day as I read this chapter on judgment. And I'm sort of filling my mind with my understanding about this card, as then the synchronicities that happen will help me understand the card too. That way, I'll be drawing upon my own intuition and the synchronistic world to teach me about the card, and it won't be strictly a matter of book learning. Like I say, the book learning is fine, but you don't want to lose out from our general purpose here in developing the art of divination, to remember that ultimately its purpose is to awaken you to your own intuition so that you can see divine order in events around you, and so that you can learn how to tune in and be your own divining rod. So if you were to rely strictly on the books and what it says in the books and leave it at that, it would seem like kind of a rote thing. It would seem like it was set in concrete, that this was something that was kind of like fixed. In fact, the truth of the matter is that your own intuition kind of governs how you work with the cards. You can certainly be knowledgeable of symbolism and tradition and history by the reading, but then you'll be able to pull it together. You get into kind of a flow space of thinking and talking, and as you talk it out, more information comes to you. Like it was for me, a new day. I was like crowned king, you know, that day. I went from a mere mortal to the Valentine king. Certainly not deserved, in the sense of her favorite suitor or what have you, is just somehow a part of destiny. And the being chosen itself, or that announcement, that judgment, as it were, that was a lot more significant than the actual fact of going through it, that nothing really had changed. I was still my ordinary self. She danced with all the other boys and not with me. But at the same time, I was no longer the same, because somehow it's like as a hand coming down out of the sky and saying, Henry, we know what you've been thinking, and yes, we want you to realize that we're aware of you, and we want you to be aware of us. Sort of like, you know, the higher self talking or something like that. So this is now a process that I'd like you to do, and see how it goes for you. And then I think that you will be in a much, much better frame of mind to work with the tarot deck as an intuitive act rather than as some kind of formula, which wouldn't be very intuitive and would kill it, would really kill the spirit of it. So you've seen me do it. It's very easy, very natural, and I know that you'll be able to do it yourself. Just get into the flow and be sincere in the enjoyment of the flow of the breath. Really feel yourself embracing the card. Really just allow the memory to come and play with it and so on, and then look at the card and see what you got and see what kind of a connection that you can make. And it doesn't matter if you feel like that you're making up the connection. That doesn't really matter, because it's a storytelling. Divination is a story. It's you telling a story about reality. You're making up a story of reality that may then reveal some interesting things that we hadn't seen before and allow us to walk into that reality in a different way. And that is the purpose of divination, because it helps you then become a co-creator, realize your own role in the flow, the scheme of things. You're not the boss. You're not in control. You're in a flow, but you're a participant. You're a co-creator. So enjoy that. Let the divination process help you discover that. And if you then discover that play of the divine mind within you, then you will have realized the spiritual purpose of divination. So with that, I wish you, and looking forward to being with you in the next video seminar on divination, in which we're going to explore some divination games to broaden your perspective about it. But until then, practice the getting into divine mind, practice doing the intuitive heart discovery process, and with the memory divination, work with some of the tarot cards until you really are establishing a relationship with them. And until then, let yourself be born anew. So long. Bye-bye.